Can I understand whether God loves a servant or not? If a servant feels that God loves him, this is a sign of that person's high status. God's friendship is a difficult and heavy issue that only a few of God's righteous servants can reach this level. We cannot interpret this matter with certainty, but if a person is on the right path and receives signs, according to hadiths and traditions, that person will definitely realize that God loves him. In this video, we are going to take a look at those. You can also support us by liking the video. The most beautiful thing for a Muslim servant is God's friendship with that servant. Do you know what God praises in the description of that servant if he loves a servant? Don't you want these praises to be said to you too? So, before anything else, we will talk about those praises. These praises in brief consist of 1. I listen to God. I don't hear anything that God doesn't like. 2. I become God's seeing eye. I don't look at anything that God doesn't like. 3. I become God's hand receiver. I don't do with my hand everything that God doesn't like. 4. I become God's foot to a place that God doesn't like. I will not go.
God says, if they ask me for something, I will give it to them. If my servant prays, their prayers and requests will be answered.
6. If he asks me for refuge, I will put him under my protection and I will support him. God protects him from everything.
The first sign of friendship with God is the creation of that servant. It is to give health and life to that servant. It is to give favors and blessings so that that servant can live his life. Also, it is because of God's love and affection for his servant that he sends the prophets for him and also gives his servant the power of reason and freedom of will to guide him to the right path and prevent him from suffering in this world and the hereafter. The real reason for the creation of man as the best of creatures is to reach perfection. Every servant will be happy in the hereafter according to the level of perfection he achieves. Achieving perfection is also possible by passing the tests. Some of the things that show that God loves you are briefly described as follows. The first is that he makes the Holy Prophet his guide. The Holy Prophet has a high position in the eyes of God. The sins of those who follow her will be forgiven, and the friendship of God will be granted to those people who are humble towards the believers and harsh towards the unbelievers, who continue to fight in the way of God and do not fear anything but God. Allah mentions these signs in a verse. O you who have believed, if any of you turn back from their religion, then listen, Allah will replace them with a people who loves them, and they also love Allah. They bow before the believers, and they raise their heads before the disbelievers, and they fight in the way of God, and they are not afraid of being condemned by people who speak against them. This is a blessing from God, who gives it to whomever he loves. God is gracious and all-knowing. The third case is to perform unnecessary worship. It is mentioned in a hadith that God says, my servant continues to approach me in the nafila worship, and finally my friendship will be granted to him. The fourth item, let us love each other and meet each other, help each other, and give each other friendly advice in the way of God. The Holy Prophet has mentioned these characteristics in a hadith. My love and affection for those who love each other because of me and spend time with each other because of me, visit each other because of me. It is honest and right. The fifth thing is to be tested. Calamities and problems are like tests for humans. Although calamities are bitter, they are like medicine. Man gives medicine to his lover, and the highest lover is God. Troubles that happen to a believer are better than the torment that awaits that person in the hereafter.
Thank you for being with me so far in the video. I leave you to God for another video.